From one end of the ukulele scale to the other this week. Keep watching. Yeah, it's got a ukulele review day back again. This is your summary video review. See the link below the video for the details, the scores, the photographs, that kind of thing. The usual thank yous to new people who donated to the site running across the bottom of the screen now. Just to say thank you for those people who really keep this site going through their generous donations. It's really much appreciated. And why not think about getting that subscribe account for GotAUkulele up and subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell symbol. You'll be notified of new stuff coming your way. That would be much appreciated too. Right, moving on. As I said in the introduction, we could not be further away on the scale of ukuleles from the one we looked at last week. That was a very expensive instrument. This week we go to a very cheap instrument, and that's because GotAUkulele really tries to cover all the bases of the price points and keep a reasonable number of all of them. Now this is a brand, it's not a Who Are They brand. They are on Amazon, but they're also in some music stores, but it's actually a brand I've reviewed before. Some years ago I reviewed this, which is the Hamano H100. This is all solid mahogany, made in China. Arrived with a horrible finish which I buffed back with some microfiber cloths, and it is an absolute, people who know these will realise that these are a bit of a gem. It sounds absolutely terrific. So it's a brand with some heritage in ukuleles, but this is at the cheap end. This is their entry level. This is the Hamano U30 Soprano, and it's what is they call their colourful series because, surprise surprise, this comes in bright rainbow colours, this one in a rather dull black. But let's get on to it. This is a soprano instrument in standard double bout shape, painted black, and it's made obviously of all laminate woods. But interestingly, Hamano say this is made of all laminate maple. So they actually specify the wood. Usually at this price point you're getting linden wood, plywood, basswood, something really cheap. For the fact that they specify that this is maple is interesting. Tie bar bridge made of a stained dark wood. No idea what it is. It's painted black. I find that an interesting choice because this is clearly aimed at beginners, kids and things. Slotted bridge would make a lot more sense. That is screwed in place. Don't think that screwing a bridge in place is a sign of poor quality. I can think of some really high-end instruments that screw their bridges in place, but it would have been nicer if they covered up those screw heads. Topping it, finishing it off, plastic straight-topped saddle. The decoration here is all down to the paint. Okay, there's a sound hole transfer here. Now, the paint. I've seen a lot worse. It's got fingerprints all over it, but it's got this sort of ripple effect on it, orange peel they call it, and that's from applying the paint too quickly and a bit too thick, but it isn't overly pooled as an instrument. I've seen much thicker paints. I can't find any major scuffs or bare patches or flaws like I've seen in many other of these cheap painted sopranos. So a lot of people on the sneak peek picture I put up said, oh, that looks really thick. It's not actually thick paint. It's actually, I'm not going to say it's great because it is ripply, but it isn't thick paint. And it isn't a thick top either when I look at it. Looking inside, reasonably tidy. It's got kerfing on the linings, which you don't always see. No bracing because it's fairly thick laminate. Fairly thick, I've just said it's thin. It's laminate, it's strong. There's an end block in there as well. Bit of glue seepage, but looking at the sound hole edge, it's not overly thick either. Let's move on. The neck, I couldn't tell you what the neck is made from because it's painted black. I'd wager it's hardwood in 3 pieces with a joint here and there, but I can't tell you where. It's kind of pleasantly flattened on the back, which surprises me for a Chinese cheapy instrument, but it is really average on the width. It's 34mm and only 26 from G to A, so that's too narrow for my hands. Probably would suit a child though. Finished in, topped with a painted black fingerboard, and this is one of the worst things about the instrument because this fingerboard is horrible. It's just, if you can probably see here, let's try the other camera. The guy with the paintbrush basically painted over the ends of the frets and it looks nasty. Those frets are made of brass. There's 12 of those to the body, very standard for a soprano. And also what surprised me about this, I would have wagered when I took this out of the box that this was going to have sharp fret ends. Not a single one. And you can't see the fret ends either, so there's not going to be any fret sprout. It's really smooth. There are no outward facing dots, but you get 2 on the side at 5 and 7. That's a bit odd, there isn't one at the 12th, but at least you've got a couple. Beyond the plastic nut, plastic nut, and incidentally the setup on this is one of the worst things about it as well, because this is far too high at the nut, as we'll come on to when I play it, too high at the saddle as well. Beyond that, ubiquitous crown, headstock. The Hamano logo is a decal in gold, looks really cheap. And then you get these tuners. The final thing, which is absolutely terrible about this instrument, they are the standard sort of thing you get on a Mahalo, things like that. Open gears, massive black buttons. Every single one of them grinds. They're all different tensions. And this one, the G peg, I find the plastic button actually slips on the metal post, and I have to push it onto the tuner to make sure I can engage it. That's awful. On the plus side, it doesn't have those horrible white plastic collars on the front. They are metal. There we are. The strings are not specified. They're white. Judging by the amount of time they've been stretching, which is weeks now, I'd say that they're just cheap nylon. And you also get a kind of next to useless dust cover gig bag. A gig bag, dust cover. And the price, these come in at about 36 quid. So it's not a lot of money at all, a bit more, 40 odd dollars in the USA. So not a lot of money, but there's lots of instruments at this price point, isn't there? 36 quid pitches this against something like the Flight Travel series, which is a remarkable instrument, but also against things like the Dolphin and the Octopus and all the other really nasty cheap ones that I've looked at, like the Ashton and the Martin Smith and things like that. I think what you can probably tell from this is that there's lots I don't like about it. That neck finishing is awful. Those tuners are awful. I don't like painted ukuleles, but it's not actually painted that badly. It doesn't look to be overbuilt. It's not overly thick. There's no sharp fret ends. That's really surprised me. It's not overly heavy, 390 grams. Balances well, and it's not a lot of money. But we're going to have a play of it, because that's where quite so often these things just really let people down. If you look back at my video of the Ashton, it really does sound like rubber bands on a tissue box. There is zero sustain. Now, when we have a play of this one, unfortunately, because of that setup and that high nut, you're going to hear it playing out of tune quite badly. That's because the action is too high here, so when you fret on the first positions, you stretch the strings to get them to engage with the frets. I think that does it a disservice. I don't mark instruments down for something like that unless there's another reason why the intonation is off, like a bad set bridge or misplaced frets. It is not a badly placed bridge, or it has no misset frets, but it is playing out of tune because of this high nut principally, but also the high saddle. So you'll hear it play out of tune, but I suppose what I'm saying is yeah, that isn't acceptable. A cheap ukulele, it doesn't matter if it's a cheap ukulele, if a ukulele comes to you from a dealer, it should play properly. This is going to need setting up, which you either need to do yourself if you know how to do it, or you are going to need to pay someone to do it, and then it's no longer a £36 instrument. But just try and put that out of your mind and listen to the tone of it, because that's really what matters. Because as I say, a lot of these other instruments have real plinky plonky sound, zero sustain, dead strings. It's loud. It's really loud. And the sustain isn't bad. Yeah, it's got an echo boxiness that a lot of these very cheap laminates have. There's the tuning. Find it very hard to play. Okay, it's playing out of tune as you heard, but actually, bit of volume, bit of sustain. I wouldn't say it's got character, but there's a certain tone in there, really, a bell tone. Okay, right, now let's just sum up. No, it's not a great instrument at all, and I can't give it a recommendation for reasons I'll come on to. The finish, though, is not as bad as you think it is. The build is pretty decent, bar the finishing of those frets and that horrible fretboard. You could change the strings, you could do a setup on it. You'd have to change these tuners because you'd soon get fed up with that G string, G tuner slipping. And then it's no longer a £36 instrument. But even at a £36 instrument, the reason this can't get a recommendation is because whilst it is light years better than things like the Ashton and the Martin Smith that I looked at and some of those other Who Are They brand absolutely cheap painted instruments, it is up against things like the Flight Travel, same money, the Octopus Soprano, less money, that are miles better than this. No, it doesn't get a recommendation, but if you've bought one of these for a child or yourself with a bit of setting up, do you know what? I think there's possibility of making this into a fun little sort of car ukulele because it's bomb-proof. I could get away with, you could change the tuners, you could do a setup on it. And I think that the tone, whilst it's playing out of tune and whilst it's really echoey, laminate, it has some tone, and it certainly has volume and a bit of sustain. So it's probably not what you were expecting for me to say about this one. No, it's not getting a great score, of course, but it is not an absolute howler. So you're not going to see me crying over it like I did with the Ashton. The Hamano U30 Colourful Series Soprano, available in a bunch of rainbow colours, not just this dreary black. Mixed, very mixed. But honestly, there's better things out there for your money. Equally, there's much worse than this out there as well. All right, okay, I'm back next week. Reviews are now booked in till I think about the end of July. It's got busier than ever at the moment. I've got so many ukuleles downstairs and in here waiting to be looked at. I hope you'll take care, stay safe. I'll see you very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.